Hello everyone, as you may know, I entered a sweepstakes through Ruffles and I won a trip to the LA premiere of Terminator Dark Fate. Originally, that was supposed to be an early review for the channel. Well, guess what? Because of the California fires, the premiere was canceled. But I still got to tour Paramount Studios, and Paramount themselves offered a private screening in my hometown. So I waited to see Terminator until the private screening in which I just saw today. So what can I say? There is no fate but we make for ourselves. However, it's a dark fate. Terminator Dark Fate continues the trend in Hollywood right now with requels, where we basically disregard a certain number of sequels and act like this one's a follow-up. Just ignore all the rest of the sequels. And that's what this does. Much like Halloween 2018, this ignores Terminator 3 all the way to Genesis. So the only ones that count now are Terminator 1 and 2. Which, let's face it, most hardcore fans counted those as the only Terminator films anyway. That being said, Tim Miller, the director of Deadpool, directs this installment, and this is the new Terminator 3. So how is it? Well, I have mixed feelings towards this film, and this review will contain spoilers, but I'll get to those in a bit. To say the least, this film has certain criticisms that I think are full of shit from people. I think people have certain prejudices towards this film. But that being said, there's some other things that I think have some merit, other criticisms that have merit towards this film. And yeah, it was a disappointing film to say the least, but it was a well-crafted film. It's not going to measure up to the first two, but I have to say I actually enjoyed elements of the sequels that were before this. But let me get to Linda Hamilton. She returns as Sarah Connor, and that's something we never had in any of the other sequels, was Linda Hamilton. And it was great seeing her come back to this character. She has an edge still, but she's a little bit older, wiser. She's had some experiences in her life, and she's a very different type of Sarah Connor here, you know. She's kind of like the 1 and 2, but her life has a different purpose, to say the least. We also have Arnold Schwarzenegger back as the T-800, and again, they kind of build upon things that were in Genesis, but in a different way. In addition to the original cast, though, we have Mackenzie Davis as this character of Grace, who's a protector from the future to protect this woman named Dani Ramos, played by Natalia Reyes. We also have this Terminator, this new Terminator named Rev 9, played by Gabriel Luna. He's a cool character. It's kind of like the TX, where they have liquid metal over endoskeleton, but the only difference is he can split himself into two different entities. So it's like they're fighting two Terminators. It's like they're fighting a T-800, a little bit more sophisticated T-800, and a T-1000. But instead of silver metal, it's like black metal. This film has some pros and cons. It's not a perfect film, but I do like the emotion there with Sarah Connor. And in many ways, this film is getting a lot of flack, and I feel it's similar to other type of reboots in Hollywood. It's very much the Force Awakens of Terminator, and I don't mean that as a good thing. It's basically like you get your primary characters you had in the previous films, but you make them secondary characters and basically introduce carbon copies of those characters in a new generation of characters. And that's what this film really does. You know, Sarah Connor and the T-800 are really supporting characters to Dani Ramos and Grace here. But overall, what I do like about this compared to some of the other sequels, there's moments of comedy, but overall, it has a dark tone again. It's the first R-rated Terminator since Rise of the Machines. And it's not as heavy as the first two, despite what Tim Miller says about it being the darkest Terminator. It's not. But I do respect it for having that serious tone that the first two films had, and it feels like it's very much in the real world. You know, this is the future of 2022. And Sarah did change the future. The thing is, changing the future, changing fate has consequences, and that's what this shows. It goes back to the Terminator 3 theme of like Judgment Day is inevitable, but instead of Skynet, it created this new artificial intelligence named Legion, and I like that. Overall, though, a lot of people are talking about this, and I don't think they would care about the new character if she wasn't Mexican, if they didn't have certain political stuff that's going on today, and I also think the argument of it being women is just ridiculous. You've had strong female characters in Terminator. Where the hell have y'all been, guys? You have Cameron in Sarah Connor Chronicles, the TX as a villain in Terminator 3, Catherine Brewster, John's wife, and then you also had 3 different incarnations of Sarah Connor. But on the flip side of that, people were acting like this is the first time Terminators has strong female characters, and I have to say, characters like Cameron in the Sarah Connor Chronicles, she was written better than Grace here. Mackenzie Davis' acting is great here, but the character comes off quite annoying, and there's certain things they do with the character that I just don't like, that just don't make sense. It's not the most efficient protector, to say the least. And she does get a little bit annoying. She has this beef towards Sarah Connor. She's very rude to her all the time for like no reason. And I'm like, lady, do you know who you're talking to? That's fucking Sarah Connor. Have some respect. But I do like the friction because Sarah Connor is aware of Skynet. She changed the future, but to Grace, she's just like, you know what? I've seen Legion. I don't know what the hell Skynet is. So there's that time flux there. Overall, though, this is pretty much a carbon copy of Terminator 1, but in Mexico, going to the US. But it's a bit shorter. I wish they spend more time developing the characters. It's a very action-packed film in a good way. A bit too CG heavy for my taste. I wish it was made more practical, like the TV show or the first two films. It's just a lot of CG, and that's inevitable. Don't get me wrong, it's inevitable, but it really brings attention to itself when it shouldn't. I do like that this Terminator is more violent. The Rev 9 does some stuff with modern technology that I haven't seen in the previous films. But that being said, they do borrow a lot of ideas and themes from previous Terminators and recycle it here. And I don't mind them disregarding the sequels. It's just, why say they're a bad dream, disregard them, and then just recycle them into something that's not original? It's strange. I like this movie a lot. I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. It's one of my least favorite Terminators, and not my least favorite, actually. But it's not a bad film. If you want to go in, enjoy a good sci-fi flick, it's great. But as a Terminator film, it really affects the first two. And I'm not talking about time problems, because it's a different timeline. She changed stuff in Judgment Day. But that being said, I think there is a better way to handle certain things in this story. But it's great seeing Linda Hamilton and Arnold Schwarzenegger return. They are great. Arnold Schwarzenegger, again, is a very different T-800. And overall, is it the sequel we always wanted? No, it's not the definitive T3. I actually think the original Rise of the Machines, despite its kind of comedic parody tone, was a better film. It's strange, like, this one feels more derivative when T3 Rise of the Machines felt more creative, if that makes any sense. And it's strange. I can't really describe it. Like, there's just something about that film that was a bit better. And I also think, even though the Rev 9 is a cool villain, Gabriel Luna in that role just doesn't intimidate me. Like the TX, yeah, it was a female Terminator. It was basically like a T-800 and T-1000, but with her eyes and everything, she had this certain dread to her. There's still that terror factor in T3, despite the campy tone. She still had that scary tone to her that made her feel threatening. And here, this guy's lethal, no remorse, but something about him doesn't feel threatening as it should. And yeah, overall, to some, you may say this has identity politics. No, it's just set in Mexico, and I think people have a problem with that. If it was like, say, an Anglo woman in the United States, they wouldn't bitch about it, even though it'd be like a carbon copy of Sarah Connor / John. And I think people just have their kind of projected politics before they see the film and prejudices towards that. That being said, I do think these new characters could have been better written. And if you had better written characters, it wouldn't matter what background they're from. They would have won the fans over. So it's going to be a very divisive film. It was kind of like The Last Jedi to me, but The Last Jedi I really, really hate, where this one, it was just a meh film. But before I go into spoilers, I give it a 3 out of 5 and a B. It's an okay film. It's not the best since T2. I think critics and people are full of shit. And maybe it's the one they enjoyed the most out of the sequels, but for me, playing the games, watching the TV show, and the other sequels, it's better than some of the other movies in some way. As a film overall, but do I like it as much as the other movies? I think there's more entertaining stuff in the other ones. But is it onto the quality of T1 and T2? No. No. And they're like, it's the best since T2, it's the greatest, and like, no. It lacks the heart and soul of what made the first two movies and some of its sequels. The humanity aspect is really lost in this film, and there's parts of this film that felt very boring to me and felt rather soulless. It just happened for the sake of happening. And yeah, I still give it a 3 out of 5 and a B, but that's just my thoughts before going into spoilers. Now, to the stuff I didn't quite like. John Connor getting killed. That was a ballsy beginning, but the way they did it, I just hated. Sarah would never let her guard down like that. And yeah, I know they won, and it was a surprising moment, but I'm like, really? I think I would have felt better if James Cameron didn't go to Comic-Con saying, Edward Furlong's gonna come back in this movie. Yeah, as a fucking CGI'd kid or whatever. He's not like him right now or in a different way. And I'm like, ugh. Crazy opening, but I like it and I don't like it. What I don't like is how it happens just so fast and just out of the blue. It's jarring. Like if you had a marathon of all three, I might like this film better if I did have a marathon, but it would just feel jarring. James Cameron pulled a freaking Alien 3 on his own franchise. And yeah, I would have liked it if there was a chase scene. If like, John, there's a Terminator and there's this whole sequence where they're trying to survive and then he gets killed off, that would have been deep. You would have had some Terminator 1 stuff. The way it happens though, it takes you off guard. And it just bothers me because it feels like the filmmakers, and especially this decade, are in the whole let's subvert your expectations for the hell of it. You know, oh, we're great artistic filmmakers by subverting your expectations. You didn't expect that. Oh, guess what? By that move, you didn't expect flopping at the box office either, I bet, huh? How's that for subverting your expectations? But no, it's crazy because he went through everything in 1 and 2 and he dies. And I know there's an argument of like it being an alternate timeline, there's consequences. But why the fuck did people die? Dyson, Kyle Reese, the T-800, I know now why you cry. Unless he was like deep down working with Skynet. It's like, I'm going to self-terminate, go down. I can't self-terminate, but I'm going to let them put me down. Because there's going to be another Terminator about to kill this little guy. Hasta la vista, baby. Hasta la vista, Johnny. But what I do like about it is it gives Sarah a reason to be in this film in a different way. It gives her some sort of, not only purpose, but it's a new avenue for the character to be explored. And also, Kyle Reese, okay, basically it's an alternate timeline. So it wouldn't matter if he could send his father back. But let's just say he needed to send his father back to exist. That broke that time loop paradox. But it is kind of frustrating having just another Terminator there after they changed the future, unless it was set at different times. Jeremy Jans went over a video about different Terminators in different times. How why don't they just send 6 of them at one time? Yeah, yeah, it's a good question. But anyway, so that's a jarring opening, and I love the opening with like the tape from Pescadero Hospital from T2. Like I was really feeling it, and to put it lightly, the best Terminators have a cool opening title sequence. The rest of them just have just one little logo and that's it. There's your answer. 1, 2, and Salvation, I think, are the best ones, and they have like a cool opening sequence. They could have done something good. They could have put like the road, like the way T2 ended, and then opened up there and have Sarah Connor talk. And he's like, "There's no fate but we make for ourselves, but there might be a dark fate or something, you know." But then we get transported to Mexico City in a future. I like Grace's introduction, you know. It's very much like the other Terminator films, but instead of it burning, there's stuff like freezing. It was kind of crazy. The Rev 9 was kind of cool. I liked how he could not only speak different languages, but you notice his accent changed based on the region. It was cool how they went to Laredo. The jokes there with Arnold, Carl's draperies. Yeah, he was an interior decorator. It reminds me of that Robot Chicken skit, but anyway. Yeah, that was interesting, but I love Sarah's introduction. The stuff there. One weakness that this film has that I do not like, I love Junkie XL's music, but this soundtrack was crap, and that's the worst Terminator theme I've ever heard out of any. And I really wish they brought Danny Elfman back, or even Lauren Balfe. Lauren Balfe's score from Genesis was just amazing. I'm going to make an edit when Sarah enters the movie through the Jeep. I'm going to have the Sarah Kicks Ass theme during that. Like, seriously, I wish they did that or recycled Brad Feidel's score. I did not like it. And the guitar was a nice touch, but on the theme, it just made it sound like the Mask of Zorro instead of Terminator. It didn't have this like synthesizer of metallic sounds. And it bums me out because you have shows like Stranger Things that pay homage to that title sequence, and I'm like, why didn't you bring that back? Anyway, the soundtrack is one thing I really, really dislike, but on Grace, she comes across kind of annoying to me as far as like always being really testy and fighting with Sarah Connor for no reasons. Like, if you do anything to her, I'm going to fuck you up. And I'm like, what? Like, yeah, you sound tough, but Sarah Connor's just not taking any shit, and I love that. But at the same time, it's like, it's rated R, but it's like, I don't mind curse words. I don't mind language. I cuss a lot. But it felt like they did it for the sake of it, to like, ooh, we're rated R, you know? And I'm like, it didn't feel authentic. It was interesting with the twist with Danny Ramos. I wish the future looked bleaker, but I liked how they were fighting. I could have seen more future stuff. There needs to be a future movie. But the one thing I disliked about Grace, what's up with the insulin shots or like the power down stuff? I know it's for short term. They can only kill Terminator once they're augmented. But like, they could have just had her like Marcus Wright. Like, why does she have to like have the shots? It's like RoboCop and baby food, but what bothers me is it's not efficient. It's just like she was powering down. I'm like, who the hell is she supposed to protect when she's powering down that much? Like, damn, I think a regular human could have lasted longer. Like, I know it's a killing machine and could kill a human easily, but like the way she's powering down, she ain't gonna be doing good. I mean, I don't know. For me, it doesn't really feel efficient to send somebody back who powers down that much, you know, even though she is strong. But another interesting thing is that Arnold doesn't arrive in the film till later. I do like what they do with drone warfare. I love seeing the Rev 9 kill a shitload of Border Patrol agents. I don't know why. I just fucking love that. It reminded me of like the police station part. But the one thing that bothered me about that is that both the Border Patrol agency and the base later on would have had a hell of a lot more security. A hell of a lot more. And yeah. And then he killed like one immigrant too, is like in his way. I kind of like that. It kind of reminded me of the truck driver part. There was also the country song that was in the biker bar when he fell down. Yeah, the airplane sequence was really cool, kind of crazy, really computerized. I didn't like the action being that computerized, but also like the action was just so like it wasn't like Paul Greengrass, Jason Bourne. It just wasn't fluid. It just felt really clunky and just over CG'd, and it didn't have the flow and style of like say the action in Rise of the Machines or Genesis or even like the Christian Bale T-800 fight in Terminator Salvation. Something about it felt sloppy. Like if you watch the scenes with Arnold versus the T-3000, John Connor, the evil John Connor, that stuff is like really cool. Him knocking through a window and stuff. And then this one is just very weird. Like I don't know what the hell's going on with the camera. I do like what they do with Sarah Connor and her, and him gaining a conscience. He's a learning computer. Him having a family. It's very interesting, and him sending the messages to Sarah saying for John. And again, maybe he survived all the way to the future, which is why Grace had those coordinates, and then now they changed it, which means the future changed. It's going to be interesting. I love the parallels and homages. You know, the ending with the Jeep, her Danny watching younger Grace through the fence, much like Sarah and the park and their dreams in T2. But all the sequels have made T2 meaningless with Arnold's sacrifice, but this one really hurt the film because it's like, what's the point? And yeah, I'm going to have another video on how to fix Terminator. I'm going to go over what I would have done with this film series and how to fix it. They could still do another, but to be honest, I don't want another Terminator. But I did like how Arnold went out. He went out with a bang, and yeah, for John, that was a cool saying at the end, but I would have actually had it a bit earlier when he was like on the, before he fell and the Rev 9 was there. When he looked at Sarah, I would have had him say for John and then like fall and then have like the whole fight scene. And I wonder if they're going to find the Rev 9 and T-800 there, if they destroyed him or not, because they might end up creating Legion, kind of like the Terminator in the factory in Cyberdyne in Terminator 1. And again, Grace was very much the Kyle Reese character here, dying. I did like how her power source was there to help defeat the Rev 9. That fight was good. And yeah, Natalia Reyes, I thought did a good job. The character wasn't fully developed, but I like how she basically stood up and wasn't going to take any shit, you know. She wanted to fight, and that was something very interesting. A lot of people are mad about it being a female John Connor. Yeah, it's kind of like the whole Star Wars thing of like it can be anybody instead of like the Skywalker family. And yeah, that's a bit of a bum out, but one character they haven't mentioned yet. Originally, I thought Danny was going to be like John's wife having his kid, or Kyle Reese would be the father. I don't know. They didn't do any of that, but Kyle Reese was born in 2003. Does he exist? I don't give a shit what Tim Miller says. He would be in his early 20s if they made a sequel to this, and that could be one character that could be in this film. So I don't know if they're going to de-age Michael Biehn or get a look-alike, but Kyle Reese could play a factor in a totally different way if they decide to continue this. Most likely, this will be the last Terminator. And yeah, I don't think it was as bad as what people said, but I have my reservations about it, and it's not my favorite. I liked the film, but it was disappointing to say the least, and it just left me, I was satisfied, but it didn't leave me feeling like, oh, that was the greatest sequel. Like it wasn't like Blade Runner 2049. It wasn't Mad Max Fury Road. It wasn't even stuff like Creed or anything. It was just one of those where I'm like, you know what? It's time to just say hasta la vista, baby, and terminate the franchise. I don't see it going anywhere. This and the sequels before it pretty much represent creative bankruptcy. And I actually think there's interesting ways to take Terminator, which I'll go in another video, like the Future War and different things with timelines. But yeah, overall, Dark Fate is not as bad as what people said, but it was an enjoyable film for what it was. Do I like it more than the last T3? I think it's a better made film, but as a Terminator film, I like the last one. There really shouldn't be any after 2, but this one, James Cameron kind of had to kill John Connor, but I just think there would have been a better way to go about it, or just better way to have him older, you know, he didn't need to kill him off. And I'm glad they closed this trilogy. They left it open for another one. They wanted to make two more, but I really think it should end here. But I'm glad Linda Hamilton came back. It was nice seeing the real Sarah Connor. And those are just my thoughts on it. I hope this spoiler review wasn't too long. Those are just my thoughts on the film. The Hoover Dam scene was crazy. I like how Arnold went down and did the knee landing, superhero landing. The one thing I didn't like, though, and the glasses scene, where he's going to get his glasses, have the music. He's like, he's going to put it on. And then he's like, nope. It's like the Luke throwing his lightsaber. But here's one thing I like thematically. He was a killer. He wore those glasses when he killed John. He put him back. It shows you how much humanity he has gained since then. I think it would have been a better scene if they didn't have any music and just had it silent and just have him with the glasses and just put it down, you know? But I knew something was going to happen when he says, like, I won't be back. And I was like, oh, shit, they're going to kill him off again. Well, let's face it, Arnold's died a couple of times in this film series. But, yeah, you can definitely tell some elements from the Sarah Connor Chronicles writer with, like, the whole Sarah Connor being wanted by the FBI and stuff like that. But, yeah. Let me know your thoughts on Terminator Dark Fate. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or did you just feel meh? You're just ready to move on? Let me know down in the comments below. You can check out these other videos on my channel and be on the lookout for my Terminator ranking later this week. Till next time, everyone.